Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Supreme King Zark deck profile. So I'm really excited to you guys, because you guys have been requesting this one non-stop since we got the list, and this deck is absolutely crazy. I'm super excited to show you guys this build, because this deck can actually summon out multiple Zarks to your side of the field, which is a really amazing thing to be able to do, and I'm really excited to show you guys this build. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next to become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test stands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Double Iris Magician. This card is a great 3-of that has the pendulum effect to once per turn target a dark spellcaster type monster that you control and apply this effect to it. Then destroy this card. Once applied, double any battle damage that monster inflicts to your opponent this turn if it battles an opponent's monster, which is a really amazing thing to just do extra battle damage. This monster effect is this card is always treated as a pendulum dragon, which is a great effect to basically go into your copy of Zark, and if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can add a pendulum graph card from your deck to your hand. We then play 3 copies of Purple Magician. You got to play 3 copies of Purple Magician because you need the Fusion Dragon. It has the ability to once per turn, if your dark spellcaster type monster battles before damage calculation, you can activate this effect that monster gains 1200 attack until the end of the damage step, and then you destroy this card. This card is always treated as a Fusion Dragon, and if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can target a face-up card on the field and destroy it, which is a pretty good effect to just be able to get an additional pop out of this card. We then play 2 copies of Black Fang Magician. Black Fang Magician is here because you need the XYZ Dragon, and it has a pretty good pendulum effect that once per turn, you can target a face-up monster opponent controls, and its attack becomes half until the end of the turn, and then destroy this card, which is a pretty good effect to be able to just half the attack of an opponent's monster. We then play a single copy of White Wing Magician. You play this card because you need the Synchro Dragon, and it's also a tuner in the deck, which comes up handy. We then play 3 copies of Harmonizing Magician. Harmonizing Magician is a great card in this deck because this card has the ability that if this card is pendulum summoned, you can special summon out an additional Magician Pendulum from your deck, which is a great effect to be able to just basically go in for additional synchro summons and pendulum summon this card out to your side of the field and summon out a copy of, say, Double Iris, and then immediately synchro summon for one of your level 8s, which is a really good effect. We then play a single copy of Performapal Celestial Magician. This card is really cool because this basically is a Pendulum Magician version of Zark, which is a really cool thing, and it has some really amazing monster effects that during the main phase, if this card was normally special on this turn, you can apply the following effects depending on the type of monsters that you control. If you control a fusion monster, this card can attack directly. If you control a synchro monster, your opponent cannot activate monster effects. If you control an XZ card, then this card's attack becomes doubled its original attack, and if you control a pendulum monster during the end phase, you get to add a pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. Usually you're going to be using that pendulum effect on this card the majority of the time. We then play 3 copies of Chronograph Magician. Chronograph Sorcerer. Chronograph Sorcerer is a really good card because this card actually lets you go into Zark because it has the ability that if a card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, then you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can special summon another monster from your hand as well. And you can manage this card that you control plus 4 other monsters from your hand, field, or graveyard, 1 each of a Pendulum Dragon, XZ Dragon, Synchro Dragon, and a Fusion Dragon in its names, and then special summon a Supreme King Zark from your extra deck. And it's treated as a fusion summon, which is a really good effect to just be able to instantly go into Zark with this card. We then play a single copy of Astrograph Sorcerer. This card coming back to 1 is just absolutely phenomenal for this deck. It helps it out so much to be able to go into all sorts of different plays because it has an insanely powerful monster effect that if this card you control, or if a card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can choose 1 monster in your graveyard extra deck or that's banished that was destroyed this turn to be able to add a monster with the same name from your deck to your hand. And you can manage this card plus 4 monsters from your hand, field, or graveyard, one each of a Pendulum, Izzy, Synchro, and Fusion Dragon in their name, and then you get to special summon out Supreme King Zark, which is a great effect. Just be able to turbo out Zark with 3 copies of Chronograph Sorcerer and a single copy of the Astrograph Sorcerer. We then play 3 copies of Skullcrabat Joker. Skullcrabat Joker is a great searcher for the deck and going to be the main normal summon that you're going to be using. It has the ability that when this card is normal summon, you can add a Perform Power monster, Magician Pendulum monster, or Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand, which is a pretty good effect to be able to just normal summon this card out to your side of the field and get the exact card that you need. We then play 3 copies of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. This card is a great graveyard effect that if this card is normal or special summon, you get to add a Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. And if this card is in the graveyard and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from the grave, and you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. That's a great effect to be able to just basically special summon this card out from the graveyard and then get a search of one of the gate cards to get the exact scale that you need to Pendulum summon out your cards. We then play a single copy of Gate Zero and a single copy of Gate Infinity because they're both searchable off your copy of your Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, and also they come up very handy with their Pendulum effects to support Zark. Really cool thing about these cards as well is that there is scale 0 and 13, allowing you to Pendulum summon anything from 1 to 12 level, which is a really good thing for this deck. I then play a single copy of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon is just basically here for its search ability, and it has the ability that basically if this card is in your Pendulum zone, then during the end phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, add a Pendulum monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. I play this card as a 1-up because it does come up every so often that you're going to want to summon this card out to your side of the field as a level 7 to go into an XZ play, and it's a really helpful 1-up in this deck. I then play a single copy of Tuning Magician as well. This card is a card that you're going to be summoning off your copy of Needle Fiber, and it's a great 1-up because if you have 2 Magician cards in your Pendulum zone while this card's in your hand or graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field, and you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. And if this card is normal or special summon, your opponent gains 400 life points and you take 400 points of damage, which isn't that big of a deal for this card. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is here because you're going to be using this card to get the exact card you need into the graveyard. We're playing a single copy of Dragon Shrine because these cards are basically here to send your copy of Darkworm to the graveyard so you can go in for the special summon to search one of the gates. We're going to be playing a single copy of Star Pendulum Graph. This card is a good 1-of in here because it has the ability that your opponent cannot target spellcaster monsters that you control with spell effects. And if a face-up Magician Pendulum monster cards leaves the monster zone or Pendulum zone, you can add a Magician Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. But you can only use this effect once per turn, which is a pretty good effect to be able to get the exact card that you need. For the fusion spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Odd Eyes Fusion. This card comes in very handy because it has the ability that you get to fusion summon a dragon fusion monster from your X deck using monsters from your hand or your side of the field as fusion material. And if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters, then you control no monsters. You can also use 2 Odd Eyes monsters in your X deck as fusion material. That is a great effect because you can send any of the cards that you need from the X deck to the graveyard to be able to use your copies of your Astrograph Sorcerer or your Chronograph Sorcerer to go into your copy of Zark. It's really good as well because basically you're going to get your copy of your Synchro and your XZ into the graveyard while also getting a fusion on the field where all you really need is the Pendulum Dragon at that point to be able to go into your copy of Zark. This card is a great card just to be able to get cards out of the X deck while also summoning out your copy of your Vortex Dragon. We then play a single copy of Pendulum Fusion. Pendulum Fusion is a very neat card because you get to fusion summon a fusion monster from your X deck using monsters that you control as fusion material. And if you have 2 cards in your Pendulum zone, you can also use cards in your Pendulum zone as fusion materials, which actually is a really nice thing for this deck, which is why I play it as a 1-of. We then play a single copy of Miracle Synchro Fusion. This card is really good because you can basically use cards in the graveyard to be able to Miracle Fusion summon out a monster that requires a Synchro monster as a fusion material, basically letting you use any of the cards in the graveyard to go for your copy of Zark, which this card is absolutely crazy good to be able to go into your second copy of Zark after you get the cards that you need into the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of Duelist Alliance. This card is a really good 3-of that lets you have the ability, if there is a card in the Pendulum zone, you can add a Pendulum monster or a Pendulum spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which comes up a lot in this deck to be able to search the exact card that you need. We then play 3 copies of Pendulum Call. This card has the ability to discard a card from your hand to be able to add 2 Pendulum Magician monsters with different names from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect to add the exact Pendulum Magicians that you need to go in for your copy of Zark. We then play 3 copies of Performapal Popper-Up. Popper-Up is a really good card in this build as well, because this card has the ability to send 3 cards from your hand to the graveyard to draw that many cards. Then you can special summon up to that many monsters from your hand with different names that are Performapal monsters with each level between the scales of the cards that you currently control that are Magician Pendulum monsters, Performapal monsters, or Odd Eyes monsters, which comes up a lot in the deck because all you're pretty much playing is those 3 types of cards. If you didn't special summon cards from your hand by this effect, you'll lose 1,000 life points for each card in your hand, which is not that big of a deal because basically you're going to summon out the cards that you draw anyways to be able to get them out on your side of the field to extend your plays. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. I will say also about Popper Up, it really helps out to get cards out of your hand to be able to draw into the additional combo pieces, as well to use cards like Chronograph and Astrograph in this deck. I really like this card as a 3-of in here. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Time Pendulum Graph. You play just a single copy of it because it has the ability that your opponent can't target your spellcaster monsters you control with trap effects, and you can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. That you can target a Magician Pendulum monster card in your monster zone or in your Pendulum zone and 1 card your opponent controls and destroy them. If this card did not destroy 2 cards, you can send a card on the field to the graveyard, which is really good because it doesn't target. So that's it for the traps, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Supreme King Dragon Zark. This deck can actually summon out them both, and it's pretty easy with cards like Miracle Synchro Fusion and cards like Astrograph and Chronograph. This card's really good because this card requires a Fusion, Synchro, and XZ and a Pendulum monster to summon out this card that are all dragon monsters. And it has the ability that must be Fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And if this card is special summoned, destroy all cards your opponent controls, and it can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, and when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can special summon out a Supreme King Dragon monster from your deck or extra deck. And if this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle, then you can place this card in the Pendulum zone, which is a pretty good effect. Play a single copy of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon because it's a walking negate, and it's a really good card to be able to play in this deck. 1 copy of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. You don't go into this card all that often, but basically it's here for the Odd Eyes Fusion to be able to get this card into the graveyard so you can go in for those additional plays. We play a single copy of Borreload Savage because Borreload Savage has the ability to basically give you additional negates. After you go into your copy of Needle Fiber, you can just basically equip it to this card and it gets Borrel counters, and you can remove Borrel counters to negate cards. This card is really, really good as a 1-of in here. Now, my really amazing tech in this deck is a single copy of Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler is an insanely powerful card with cards like Miracle Synchro Fusion and Chronograph and Astrograph, because you can easily summon this card out to your side of the field with your copies of your Pendulum Magicians. I really like this card because you're basically going to summon this card with a Harmonizing Magician and any of your other Pendulum Magicians. And it has the ability to, if this card is Synchro Summon, you can activate the effect to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, add 1 light or dark monster from those cards to your hand. You send the rest to the graveyard, being able to stack the graveyard with all sorts of different cards like Pendulum Dragons, Fusion Dragons, Synchro, and even XZ Dragons with your different Pendulum Magicians, so you can go into your copy of Zark a little easier. I really like this card in this deck, and it is a super powerful card. We then play a single copy of Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. Clearwing is very good because if this card is Synchro Summon, you draw all face-up monsters your opponent controls, which is a pretty good effect. You play 2 copies of Time Star Magician. Time Star Magician is a 2-of in here. It really helps out. I was playing 1 copy of it, but I ended up wanting the 2nd copy of it, so I put a 2nd one in. Has the ability to detach from 2 of this card and then add a Dark Spellcaster from your deck to your graveyard or face from your extra deck to your hand, which is a pretty good effect to be able to add the exact piece that you need to go into Zark. 1 copy of Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion. Dark Rebellion is a good 1-of in here because basically it's just a really good card to go in for game with. 1 copy of Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon is going to be rarely summoned, but usually summoned out using your copy of Vortex Dragon. You're going to use the Vortex Dragon to be able to just basically send this card to the graveyard with Odd Eyes Fusion to use this card and your Meteor Burst to send those 2 to the graveyard to go into the Vortex Dragon with Odd Eyes Fusion to get those 2 Synchro and XZs into the graveyard for those plays. We play a single copy of Appaloosa for the arrows, which this card is really good, and the monster negates. One copy of Selene, because it's very easy to climb into the copy of Selene and then go to the copy of Appaloosa. One copy of Needle Fiber, because Needle Fiber is super easy to summon in this deck. And basically you go into this card, summon Tuning Magician, summon Link this away to summon Selene, use Selene's ability to remove 3 spell counters off of it, and then summon any of your spellcasters from the graveyard, and then be able to go into the copy of Appaloosa really, really easily for those zones. We then play a single copy of Anaconda as well, because we play all the different fusion spells in this deck to go into Zark, and it's a really good one of in here to use cards like Pendulum Fusion, Odd Eyes Fusion, and even Miracle Synchro Fusion to go into that copy of Zark. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really amazing deck. I really love this build. I believe it's 43 cards, because you guys will probably ask about that one, but I believe it's 43 cards. If you guys would like to drop the Perform File Popper-Ups, it will carry it to 40 cards, but I really, really like that card in this deck, and it helps out a lot just to get the exact cards you need into the graveyard. It's a really fun deck to play with, and it's amazing this deck can actually summon multiple Zarks to your side of the field, and it's a really amazing deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.